Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. If you're looking to maximize your score for the WSET Level exam in wines, you found the right place. My name is Randy, and we'll be discussing strategies, techniques, and many helpful hints that I use to study for the test. I'll show you how I maximized my WSET score and achieved a perfect score of 100%. This is part 2 of a two-part series. There are several helpful hints in part 1, and this video contains many more ideas to help you maximize your score. If you haven't already done so, be sure to watch part 1. I put a link to part 1 in the comment section below. Please keep in mind that these ideas are not a guarantee of a perfect score, but I hope my insights will help you achieve the level of success you desire and to help you do your best. In part 1, we recognized the value of an approved WSET course, learned how I use the textbook and workbook, and finally how you can reinforce your knowledge with publications and videos. In this video, we'll show you how hosting a wine tasting, studying text sheets or tasting notes, and visiting your local supermarket, big box retailer, or specialty wine store to study labels can help you. In the back half of this video, I've created a practical exercise to help you identify the important characteristics of wine labels. Here's my WSET Level 2 score in wines. Okay, let's get going. Early in my study program, I made a decision to hold wine tasting sessions with friends and relatives. I always believe that one of the best ways to learn a subject is to teach or lead a discussion on that topic. By holding these tastings, it required me to do research and become knowledgeable on the wines I presented. A secondary goal of the tastings was to find different wines that typically scored well with critics at significantly below suggested retail price or SRP. If finding wines with good quality to price ratios is something of interest to you, and you'd like me to make a video on this experience, please leave a comment below. Here are a few highlights that I found useful when holding these sessions. The tastings were blind. I was the only one to know the name, producer, varietal, and vintage of the wines. Each wine was covered with a paper bag during the pours. I found 5 to 6 wines to be an appropriate amount of wine to be tasted. I usually included a sparkling wine, 2 whites, and 2 or 3 reds, depending upon the size of the crowd. The tasting should have 8 to 12 participants, all of course at or above legal drinking age. Ideally, the wine should be served with food like a dinner menu. If pairing requires too much coordination, then some substantial hors d'oeuvres or appetizers are suitable. I created score sheets for the tasters to record their impressions of each of the wines. They guessed the varietal and price per bottle. Each wine was scored on a scale of 0 to 5. It is important to note that the tasters were under no pressure to provide all the information, as everyone had a different level of experience with wine. I wanted to make the process as fun and stress-free as possible. After we all had a chance to give our impressions, guesses, and scores, I would reveal the names of the wine, disclose the purchase information, producer, and any other wine critic comment or scores. Now, let's look at text sheets or tasting notes. When researching different wines to present at wine tastings, I found it helpful to read the description of the wines in the wine text sheet. You can often find the text sheet or tasting notes in the producer's webpage or sometimes in the distributor's or importer's webpage if it's an international selection. Sometimes you'll find the text sheet buried in the menu section at the bottom of the webpage of the producer. Next, we'll look at 3 different text sheet examples, one each from Carroll Shelton, Fontati, and Penley Estates. The first text sheet we'll look at is the Carroll Shelton Wines 2021 Wild Thing Old Vine Zinfandel from Mendocino County. This text sheet has quite a bit of information, including the name of the producer, of course, and the name of the wine, an overview of the vineyard, including the age of the vines, cellar notes, which describe the fermentation process, the winemaker's tasting notes. This is followed by other information including harvest dates, cellar aging, alcohol level, and varietal composition. Lots of good information in this text sheet. The second text sheet is the Fontati Chianti Classico. Although not as descriptive as the Carol Shelton text sheet, it does include some interesting information. I know it's hard to see, but the text sheet is both in Italian and English. It includes appellation, grapes, density of vines, fermentation process, and aging. In the third text sheet example, we have the 2019 Penley Estate Phoenix Cabernet Sauvignon. The text sheet includes information about the winemaker, region, varietal, vintage notes, tasting notes, any critical acclaim, and finally some information about Penley. The next helpful hint is to read wine labels. Go to your local supermarket, big box retailer, specialty wine shop, or government wine store to scan the inventory and read labels. Yes, you heard me correctly. I made several trips to local retail outlets that had extensive wine inventories. The type of store will depend upon your local jurisdiction and government alcohol regulations. I was lucky enough to have a large supermarket and big box retailer with extensive wine inventory within a short distance of my home. During my WSET studying routine, I would spend time walking up and down wine aisles, examining all the different bottles. There's no substitute for learning information from a book and using that knowledge in the real world. Here are two examples of retail operations with extensive wine inventories I would visit. Again, this exercise is meant to enhance your knowledge base and not be a substitute for reading the textbook and workbook. Here's another example of a retailer with extensive wine inventory. For those of you that have a Costco in your area that sells wine, you may recognize this familiar display. I found this especially helpful as not only were the wine critic scores indicated, but also a short description including tasting notes were provided for the wines. Okay, now it's time to test your knowledge. Let's turn our attention to the following exercise by looking at a few bottles. Although this exercise is not required for Level 2, I found that closely examining bottles helped me to learn the information. Closely examine the bottles for vintage, producer, geographic origin. In the United States, it's called the American Viticulture Area, or AVA. Other countries will have their own way of designating the place of origin. Also look for the grape varietal and any special style. We'll have 10 labels for you to examine. Again, look for the producer, country of origin, geographic indication, grape varietal or style, and vintage. For the first bottle, here is the producer, country of origin. Since you know Napa Valley is in the USA, USA's country of origin, this is all the geographic indication. Primary varietal, right here. And of course the vintage. Here is bottle number 2. The answers for bottle number 2, the producer is right here. Country of origin is France. The reason we know that is because the geographic indication is Bourgogne, which is right here. Primary varietal, of course, Chardonnay, and the vintage. Bottle number 3. The answers for bottle number 3, the producer. Geographic indication Los Carneros. And because of that, you know that's located in the USA. Primary varietal and vintage. Take a look at bottle number 4. For bottle number 4, the producer is right here. Country of origin is France. The reason we know that is because the geographic indication is Fleury, one of the 10 Beaujolais crus. The primary varietal is Gamay, and the vintage 2021. Here's bottle number 5, a white wine. For bottle number 5, here's the producer. The country of origin is Italy. The reason we know that is because the geographic indication is Soave Classico. And the primary varietal in that area is Garganega. The vintage is right here. Bottle number 6, a red wine. The producer for bottle number 6. The country of origin is France. The reason you know that is because the geographic indication is Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and you know that's located in France. The primary varietals are Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre. Normally, Grenache is the leading varietal, but in this case, Syrah makes up 35%, Grenache 33%, and Mourvèdre 31%. And finally, the vintage 2019. Bottle number 7, a red wine from the New World. For bottle number 7, the producer. The geographic indication is Sonoma Coast, and because of that, you know the country of origin is the USA. Primary varietal right here, and vintage. Bottle number 8, a nice white wine. For bottle number 8, the producer. Geographic indication is Marlborough, and they also have the country of origin listed on the label. Primary varietal right here, and finally the vintage. Bottle number 9. We saw this earlier by looking at one of the text sheets. For bottle number 9, the producer, geographic indication, and because we know that Chianti Classico is from Italy, that would be the country of origin, primary varietal Sangiovese for Chianti Classico, and vintage 2020 right up here. And finally, bottle number 10. This is a little tricky. We're going to have to rotate the bottle to look at the back. Here's the back side of the same bottle. The answers for bottle number 10, the producer, right here. Country of origin is Spain. The reason you know that is because the geographic indication is Rioja, and Rioja is located in Spain. The primary varietal and style, well, the varietal is Tempranillo and Grenache. In this case, 70% is Tempranillo. Grenache makes up 30% of this blend. And you know this is Crianza because as we rotated to the back label, you probably saw the Crianza labeling towards the bottom of the bottle. And finally, the vintage is 2018. This concludes part 2 of this 2-part video on helping you maximize your level 2 score in wines. If you find this information helpful, please subscribe and hit that like button as it really helps me to keep this channel going. Thank you for staying with me. I wish you success with your examination.